if you do something and it needs more time, don't just give them something shit. Ask them to wait and just get it cooked really nicely and then give it to them. Because they might not be happy when they wait, but they'll forget about it when they eat it.
Hi everybody, you're with Dani Valent and you're listening to Dirty Linen. I am grateful for that. Thank you so much for being with me. It's always a good day to talk about food. And I reckon this is a particularly good time to catch up with chef and restaurateur Dave Pynt, the owner of Burnt Ends in Singapore. He's also recently added People Brewery to the Burnt Ends stable of restaurants and other businesses and good places to hang out in that steamy, tropical, delicious city of Singapore. Dave is a Perth-born chef. He's worked all around the world, and I'm looking forward to digging into some of those periods of his career, as well as finding out what is cooking in Singapore. Dave, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Hey, Dani. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so good to have you on the show. I was actually, thinking about this chat. I was reflecting on my one and only meal at Burnt Ends, which was in Singapore in 2018 when you were still in the original site, which was little and felt like a little hideaway. You walked in and, Singapore was already warm enough, but then you walk in and there's the fire crackling and the energy in that room. I looked through my snaps of the dishes that I ate, and I reckon surely I photographed them all because I kept flicking and I kept flicking and I kept flicking. There was quite a few. Started off with some delicious bites. There was some beautiful asparagus, some amazing Australian beef, a quail egg, a bit of caviar kept popping up. It was super delicious. It really took me back to that fire-licked experience. But I guess things are pretty different for Burnt Ends these days, aren't they?
Yeah, look, we're a little bit bigger than we were in the little one. I call it the little one now because the new one's probably about 10 times the size with a few more pockets of different parts of the restaurant that you can enjoy yourself in.
I've looked at the menu that you're doing now and some of the dishes. It seems like there are some classics that you've carried over. Is that the case? Are there some dishes that you love cooking, that the team loves and that your regulars just need to see there?
Yeah, 100%. I think probably about 70% of the menu stays pretty fixed, and then we have about 30% that we get to play around with and have a bit of fun with and rotate through, the double seasons that we get in Singapore, Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. But yeah, there's a lot of demand for, I guess, consistency of dishes from our regulars, which makes it very hard to completely remove things from the menu.
Tell me about one of those dishes that, is bolted on.
I guess one of them that's bolted on is the burnt flour grissini with taramasalata. And it's like one of those snacks. It's a crispy little burnt flour flatbread that we do in the oven, freshly baked, house-made taramasalata that we smoke the pollock roe, and then shitloads of chives, some kombu and lemon chili vinaigrette, lemon zest and dill oil and fresh dill. And it's one of those ones that, the regulars that come all the time, it's something that they almost always get, and sometimes evolve into, instead of sharing one, they'll have one each. So I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
How does that dish speak to the Burnt Ends project? Because to me, it's as you just rattle off those ingredients, I feel the fire, I feel the sort of international focus where you're pulling techniques and ingredients from different styles of cooking, but also that, I guess, an exuberance where it's like not so much, I guess, a palate cleanser. It's just like a sort of little fireworks show to start off your meal.
Yeah, it's sort of like that little firecracker, and it's really got the heart and energy of what Burnt Ends is and stands for. We burn the flour, or a portion of the flour that goes into the flatbread, so it's already nutty and toasty, and then we cook it literally a la minute in a 700 degree Celsius oven just on the floor, just in front of it. And then we just whip up the taramasalata, and it goes through a process of, we cure it, we rinse it through sake, and then we cold smoke it, and then we turn into taramasalata. And it's just a huge amount of work. And, when you eat it, it's so simple, but actually there's a shitload of work behind it.
Yeah, interesting. And like, what's a dish that you've got on at the moment that I suppose speaks to the nimbleness of what you can do? And in terms of, as you say, I like that you're calling it the double seasons. Like you can sort of pluck ingredients from Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere at the same time. Like, yeah, what's a dish that really speaks to that side of what you do and the sort of the dynamics of the menu?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things is we're starting to get some of the winter pork out of Australia, and we bring it up sort of every couple of weeks, and we break it down to break down a whole animal. And this time we're getting some beautiful mandarins in, and we're just making a mandarin buffalo hot sauce to go with that. We slow roast it, and then we hit it with the sauce and the fresh ranch dressing. And it's one of those things where we're getting these beautiful mandarins in, so we're juicing them, taking the peels, absolutely everything, making a buffalo hot sauce out of it, and then we're using that with some beautiful pork out of Australia because it's winter, it's a little bit fattier, and it's that time that we should be eating it.
Wow. How good are mandarins and like pork and citrus? That is, an old story that never gets tired.
Classic.
Yeah, beautiful. Tell me more about this connection to produce, because I guess Singapore is such an exciting place to eat, but there's not that much that's grown locally that's used in restaurants there. Which is a plus and a minus. As you say, you can pluck from everywhere and you can pick your season, but you don't have, I guess, that connection to produce that you might have if you're cooking closer to more farmland. Talk about that tension.
Yeah, look, I mean, especially when I first came to Singapore, it was super hard because, we'd been based in London where, you finish service at, 12, 1 a.m. and you can literally call a farmer or a fisherman or something and be like, hey, what have you got? Can I order something for tomorrow? And they'll be like, oh, look, we've got this. And literally it's on your door 4 or 5 hours later. It's like absolutely incredible. And, coming to Singapore where literally nothing is grown or produced there, you come up against this challenge where you've got to think of these menus 5 days in advance because you've got to put in an order with a wholesaler, not even a farmer, a wholesaler, to then speak to a farmer or a market somewhere around the world to go source the produce, get it onto a plane, get all the documents, get it into Singapore and then get it to you. And I mean, that adjustment, I still can't get my head around it. Luckily, we've got guys in the team that sort it out a bit better. But it's a big struggle sort of not being able to have those, I guess, for creativity more than anything. But, you can't be speaking to a farmer and go, hey, what have you got coming up? Or when's this season going to end? And we're actually lucky enough to sort of have a few producers and farmers, especially around Australia, that we work a bit closer with and have a bit of foresight into what's coming, when it's coming, when the season's going to be finished and things like this. And that helps keep me a little bit sane. But I mean, it is a dream being able to go back and sit on a farm, look at the produce, see where it's grown, pull it out of the ground and, have that bit of magic.
Yeah, I've really been reflecting on this, thinking about talking to you because I feel like cooking over fire has become so much more common since you opened Burnt Ends in Singapore in 2013. In Australian kitchens, I feel like one of the biggest trends, it seems crazy to call cooking over fire a trend because that's like caveman stuff, right? We've been doing it for a while, but it's definitely come back around as a way of allowing produce to shine. And I think taking food back to something a bit more simple, less tweezery stuff and more, I guess, honest cooking, simple cooking, just really focusing on an ingredient. And then that does, I guess, what make a chef want to talk to a farmer and, think about the seasons and think about really expressing things quite directly. But then at the same time, one of the biggest conversations in Australian kitchens is the cost of labour and the cost of goods. So you've got this sort of, I guess, bucolic sense. We're lucky in our Australian cities. So much of them are, the country is in, within a couple of hours. You can literally ring up a farmer and get the produce there. But then you're still dealing with quite different kitchen dynamics to what I would imagine is the case in Singapore. It's really, there's it's never going to be a simple picture. This is good. This is bad. Like, I mean, So there is a question at the end of this ramble, and I think it's around what do you. Yeah. Well, actually, what's the question? The question is, what do you think about the rise of fire cooking that I'm sure you've noticed in Australia since you opened in Singapore? And what are you jealous of about Australian kitchens, and what are you glad you don't have to deal with?
Oh, look, I think it's number one. I think it's fantastic because the more places that are cooking over fire, it basically means the more places I'm going to enjoy, because I do thoroughly enjoy like food being cooked over fire, and so having more places to go and visit and try is definitely something up my alley. And I think it's a wonderful thing because it's not easy. And I think, with the rise of the internet and YouTube and Instagram and everything, all your home cooks can learn techniques very, very quickly and emulate them at home if they're easy enough. So, sous vide it's a formula, right? You buy the machine and they're $100 now. You put it in a pot at home full of water. You get your meat from your butcher. You turn it on. You put it in there, and you're done, right? And so I think that side of cooking, or that's one element of cooking that can be easily mastered at home. And for the diner, it's then like, why would I go out for that experience? I can do that at home. Whereas fire cooking, it is a little bit more nuanced. It provides this magic of flavor that you can't get from a gas or a pan or a normal oven. And so whenever they go out, they are experiencing that little bit of magic for them. And actually, it takes a lot of skill that can only be built up over time and putting systems in place. And that's where, the magic of restaurants really comes alive. It seems very seamless, but you try and do it at home, like you put on a big spread for your friends, fuck, it's hard. And I do have barbecues at home, so I know this firsthand as well. So
yeah, well, I guess everyone's experienced, a burnt steak at a barbecue. So what about the other part of the question, which I guess the labour that's associated with running kitchens in generally, but particularly cooking over fire, where, as you rightly say, like, it does create, there's a lot of nuance. You really need to keep an eye on it. There's a lot of skill in knowing when something is done. What are the realities of running a restaurant business in Singapore?
Oh, look, Singapore's super competitive. Running businesses just this year alone. So I think 5 months. So end of May, these stats came out. We've had 1,800 new F&B establishments open this year in 5 months. So that's almost 3 a day for a whole year, and you won't get through the new ones that have opened, which I think is like just an insane stat. And yes, look, on the flip side, we've had 1,500 close, but there's always that element of what's new, what's exciting, and you've got enough restaurants to fill your year without even batting an eyelid. And so that does make it extremely tough. The Singapore dollar is super strong now. And so, the surrounding countries find it a little bit harder to travel in because their dollars just don't go as far. And so we're seeing everything sort of soften a little bit this year, which has made it very challenging. And, the number of restaurants opening puts huge amounts of pressure on staffing, the ability for staff just to chop and change in the restaurants and do what they want to do. But on the flip side, and I think this is probably pretty important because, if it gets to the people higher up, they should be taking note after watching what's happening in the UK, is our tax in Singapore is super low. And so running a business, you pay tax on your labour, you pay GST as well, and you pay company tax, but you're not paying exorbitant capital gains, you're not paying dividends, and you're not paying crazy capital gains or VAT like you are in the UK. And I think, just making things a little bit easier for people in hospitality is something that, the higher ups need to sort of take note of, because it does employ a huge amount of people and give a lot of joy to a lot of people around the cities.
A lot of Australian restaurants are paying, around 50% wage costs in, turnover. Like, how does that sit in Singapore?
No, I think we all our venues are about 30%, about 30 to 32%. So our wage, we can afford to pay our staff, I guess, a little bit lower because the tax they pay to the government, they're paying 8% tax on their income. So that's 8% up to 300,000 a year. So they've got a lot of choice in how they spend their money, rather than, you work 40 hours and 20 hours of that is going to the government, which is insane.
So even though you're paying lower wages than you would be in Australia, the like living standard of your chefs would you say is comparable?
Yeah, actually I would, because Singapore, I think there's a very high standard of living and, accommodation. You've got a lot of, I guess, social or public housing that's available in Singapore. And you can also go down the road to any hawker centre and get a $3 or $4 meal. You've got insane public transport here. And so you can actually get by with not too much and lead a really good life. And you're in control of your money. So as a student, you can figure out how much do I want to pay on rent, rather than how much is going to the government, then what can I afford for everything else.
And what about kitchen culture in Singapore, Dave? Like, it's a big, ongoing and necessary conversation in Australia and obviously in other places around the world. And I do want to talk about what you probably think I want to talk about. But what's it like in Singapore? Like, what's it like in terms of diversity in kitchens, employment of women in kitchens and in restaurants generally, and in terms of the way that staff are treated?
Yeah, look, I mean, the rules in Singapore are very strict. So how you engage with your staff is kept to a super high standard, because, they can just pick up a call to the Ministry of Manpower and basically every complaint or issue will 100% get followed up. And, the rules, I guess I'll touch on it because it's pretty relevant at the moment. The rules around sexual harassment are fucking insane here. So
in a good way, right?
100% in a good way. You shouldn't, like, basically there's a law called outrage of modesty. So if I make a girl or a guy feel really uncomfortable sexually, then that's a felony. That's a charge. And it's, whether whoever's in the right or wrong actually goes through a huge police process and can take 1.5 years. And you can't travel for that 1.5 years. They take your passport. They do everything. And so it's treated like very, very seriously. So if you aren't behaving, then you 100% you'll get caught. This is Singapore.
Wow.
You don't misbehave.
And so do you have a culture of employing women in your kitchens?
Look, we have a culture of anyone with a heartbeat and 2 hands we want to employ. And what we've found, especially, is in the hot kitchen, actually we don't have a huge amount. We've got the ones that come in, they generally stay a long time and they're fucking weapons. Like, they're really, really, really good. But actually what we've found now in the bakery side, I'm pretty sure it's like 90 or 95% of the kitchen is female in there at the moment. And none of this is by choice. Like, I'm not saying, hey, this is our directive. This is just a natural play out of what's been come our way over probably 14 years.
I love looking at your CV because you worked in some really amazing places. Amuse in Perth was such a incredible restaurant for that city. Tell me about that. Like, what year was that, and what was that kitchen like, or the restaurant like?
For Restaurant Amuse?
Yeah.
Oh, look, it was amazing. I think I actually think it was the first restaurant where I learned how to cook. Right. And I think, cooking, you can look at a couple of different ways. One is like, there's a recipe, you follow it, and you come out with a certain outcome. And it's very like manufacturing, methodical. And that's one style of running restaurants. Whereas Amuse came from that greenhouse London ideology, where it's just like, okay, this week we're doing this, go figure it out. And it's like you gotta think about what's in front of you. You got to think about how you're going to put it together. You got to plan your time. During service, it's like you're literally cooking things a la minute, and it's just like, oh. And so what happens is you gain these skills and confidence that you're like, oh, I can now cook this bit of fish or this bit of chicken or this duck or this pigeon. It doesn't matter what you throw in front, because it's all come my way, I can cook it. And I've got that skill. And I think a lot of previous kitchens, it was kind of like, this product goes to this, and this is the process, this is the timer, and that's it. And so, yeah, Amuse was incredible for that. A lot of passion, a lot of creativity, and, you had to cook. It was like you had to really cook, which I loved.
What do you think you've carried from that through to today?
Oh, look, I think definitely the energy and the need to cook things a la minute and give the chefs that work with us the foundations to be confident with cooking whatever comes their way. And I really feel that's definitely something, once our chefs go through ovens and grills, actually they can fucking cook. They're really good cooks, which I love.
Another incredible place that you worked with, Tetsuya in Sydney, which, so many amazing chefs have gone through there and done their own incredible things. I mean, Martin Ben is just one who comes to mind, then it's Sepia. What was something that you took from the kitchen at Tetsuya in Sydney?
I think, I think there's a couple of things that I definitely took from Tetsuya. One is like the calmness of the kitchen. It's like this simmering energy that just, everyone's very tense, but it's all actually very calm. Everyone needs to know their section. Everyone needs to be in control. And to run your kitchen that way is super important and actually allows everyone to sort of grow rather than, always having to pester and yell and clang and bash. It doesn't go anywhere. Whereas this sort of like simmering energy under this calmness allows everyone to really drive and put themselves forward and push themselves, which I thought was fantastic. The other thing was, or the other couple of things would be produce. It's just he had such a affinity to getting the best produce and then finding the best way to use that produce was insane. And I think I remember working with Hideki, or he was working there, and he'd be at the fish markets every morning going to collect the best fish for what he was going to serve to the VIPs in the sushi room that night. And just, seeing that dedication to produce is absolutely incredible. And then finally, it's precision. It's just, if you weren't precise and it wasn't perfect, God, do it again. And the pressure to get that right was insane.
Wow. You really take us to that moment, because I can see that sort of, I don't know, like all the knowledge that you must bring to bear to choose the perfect piece of fish for, that very important customer. And yeah, I mean, you don't want to stuff that up then, do you? You don't want to wreck it.
No. And I think I remember talking to Hideki about it. One time I was like, how do you know? And he's just like, I can look at it and know. Because of that experience of like going every day for so many years, he can recognize the traits in what a fish should look like without even having to really touch it to know that that's the fish that he wants.
I mean, do you feel like it must be something you try to train people in these days? It's let's talk about something on the grill, like, when it's done. Like, you're not going to cut open a steak and check, right? Like, do you feel like that's made you patient as a teacher or impatient?
I think it doesn't affect my patience, because when you're teaching someone, your job is to guide them through that process and allow them to sort of see and understand that. And I think it's more a reflection of how good you are as a teacher, how fast and when they can pick it up, the nuances of what things are like. And we had the other day, we had a guy who's new to like slow roasting things. And so he was slow roasting. He's like, chef, it's done. I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, I don't think it's done. I go through the process, I check it, I'm like, it's not done. Get it back in there, done. 2 nights later, we're doing the same dish, and they open it up, and it's like, a lot of it's about timing. We know how things should roughly be in the restaurant. And so it comes out a little bit early, and I'm like, I don't know about, like, in my head, I'm like, I think it's going to need to go back in. Pulled it out, and I could see him opening it on the board like 2 or 3 meters away. And I'm just like, yeah, that's fucking done. And he brings it over, you test it, you're like, yeah, that's banging. So
that must be so satisfying.
Yeah, it's good. When they get it, it's great to know that when they do it, they're just so fucking good at it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the customer's going to enjoy it. And I think that's the ultimate part of it.
Yeah, right. Do you have to instill that in your chefs as well? Like that sort of passion for customer enjoyment?
I think that is the hardest part. And I think, we're quite lucky because we literally sit opposite the customer. So if we had a lot of disappointed customers, I could be miserable working in our kitchen. But generally, because we have a lot of happy customers, it's okay. And, back to that point, it's kind of like the instilling that we want to do is, if you do something and it needs more time, don't just give them something shit. Ask them to wait and just get it cooked really nicely and then give it to them. Because they'll forget about it. They might not be happy when they wait, but they'll forget about it when they eat it.
Yeah. And I suppose if you can transmit the fact that they're waiting because you care, then that's going to make a difference as well.
Yeah, usually it's an awkward conversation and not one that we always like having, but it's just like, hey, look, this dish, I know we told you it was going to be ready at 7, but it's running a bit late. It might be 20 minutes. Can we get you something else? And often we'll send them something to fill that gap a little bit. But ultimately, when you end up with a good product in front of you rather than a shit one, they appreciate your honesty about, cooking things. And we cook things a la menu. It's not always perfect. The oven's not the same as it was the day before. There's so many variables that, these things happen, and we just need to be okay with dealing with it.
Well, I think the fact that you've leaned into fire must mean that you love the variables.
Definitely keeps us on our toes a lot, that's for sure.
Dave, another key place that you worked was NOMA. I think it was 2010 that you went over there and did a stage, which I think lasted for 4 or 5 months. NOMA's obviously been in the news a lot recently, partly because of the way that some of the stagiaires experienced their time at NOMA, which I think at the time you were there, it was the number 1 restaurant in the world. For whatever that means, and was a place that certainly a lot of people from all around the world wanted to learn from. Tell us about your experience there.
Look, I went for 3 months because it's a 3-month opportunity that you get. I think I quit after 2 weeks and I stayed for 5 months. So
you crawled back or what?
No. So what basically happened is I went there and my 100% intention was that I wanted to learn. I wanted to see things. I wanted to learn new ingredients, techniques, everything. And what ended up happening is I got put on a section and then I had to run the section, and the pressures of running that section was just like a manufacturing line. It was like 8 a.m. you were there, you worked your ass off to get to lunch. You did lunch service. You worked your ass off to get to dinner service. You did dinner service, and then you packed down, and then you rode home at like 1 or 2 a.m. and then you're back in to do it again the next day. And so my ability to learn was zero, right? It was like, this is your section, these are your dishes, that's it. And I was just like, look, this doesn't interest me at all. Is there a way I can move around the kitchen? Otherwise, in my mind, I was wasting my time and I'm just going to fuck off, right? And the head chef at the time, Sam Miller, I sat with him and he said, look, we can do this. You'll need to stay for a little bit more time on that section and then we'll come up with a plan to move you around. And they did that, and I absolutely loved it. I love the fact that, the energy and the intensity of that restaurant was so high. And at that time in my career, it was like I had the energy, I had the passion, I could see the vision, and I was able to learn so much from them.
I mean, do you think that Did you see other people having different experiences? I mean, you're a white man with obviously a bit of confidence and experience. You were able to advocate for yourself. Did you see other people having different experiences?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people went maybe with different motivations and maybe different or expected outcomes of having spent time there. And I think a lot of people maybe without the confidence or the strength of character to sort of speak up for themselves would sort of get pigeonholed in the prep kitchen upstairs, and you'd spend a lot of your time just doing prep for 12, 14 hours a day. And so your ability to learn, yes, you see and learn and you're part of a team, but your actual ability to learn and grow your skill set significantly would not be there.
I mean, what do you think of stage culture generally? Which for people who don't know, it's like the practice of working for free in restaurants in order to learn, which is a common practice. It's been a common practice in various countries around the world, but is now, I guess, not allowed in many workplaces, including in Australia. What do you think about it, Dave?
Look, I mean, I got a huge amount out of my time staging, and I was very aware of the impact it would have on me. Like I had fuck all money. I slept on floors. I ate at work, and in the mornings I'd have like flatbreads and dips and whatever, and that's what I could afford, right? But my ability to learn from these guys has definitely had a huge impact on where I am today, for sure. And I look at it as in, if you want to go and get experience from certain places, and I chose the places that I wanted to go to. If you want to go get that experience, sometimes they can't employ you. Sometimes they can't offer you money because their financial model doesn't make sense. But if you've got a reason to get something out of them and they can use the benefit, then I think it can be a good thing, but it can also be, the intentions can be very much abused, is probably the right way to think about it. There's definitely a lot of benefits, but there's the ability to abuse that position and power to your extent. And, we've just had, we're able to get stagiaires, but they have to go through a proper Singapore work pass to be able to do it. So we have to register them with the government, let them know what they're here for, et cetera, et cetera. And they come up for a week. We've just had a guy from a brewery down in, I won't name which one it is, but in WA. And he's come up. He spent a couple of days with us at Burnt Ends. He spent a couple of days with us at the brewery, the new brewery. And he's absolutely loving it. And hopefully he's seen a few new things. He's got some inspiration. He's met a whole bunch of our team and friendships. And, he'll go away and hopefully our guys will pop down and visit him. I'll definitely be flying through there next time I'm in WA and popping in to see him. And I think there are a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, I guess it's just as long as everyone's got their eyes open and the power imbalances are, I suppose, understood and respected, and everyone's treated well and obviously does get what they came for.
Yeah, the ability to abuse is high, and Singapore's got a lot of regulations. We can't just accept people and have them, and they'll know at any one time how many people we've got. It's not an easy process to get this through, but we can manage it. But if they're deemed to be taking someone's job, like replacing a staff member, then we would get in big trouble.
Interesting. Dave, another big conversation at the moment is Michelin stars. So Burnt Ends has had a Michelin star in Singapore for a long time, which is great. New Zealand has just had its first Michelin awards, and a number of restaurants received 1 star, one restaurant received 2 stars. It's been a huge conversation. South Australia has also got Michelin on board, so the Oceania push is on. What do you think about Michelin stars and Australia, New Zealand?
Look, I think it's for business, it's just another benchmark, right? It's for outsiders to be like, this is where that restaurant stands. This is what I can expect from a restaurant that's received a Bib Gourmand, a 1-star, 2-star, or 3-star. And it just basically gives you a really good sense of trust into what that restaurant can deliver. And so, for New Zealand, will you see an ROI? I think it's quite hard on that kind of investment. But in terms of getting New Zealand on the map before Australia, I think Australia missed an opportunity there to sort of have their restaurants benchmarked against the rest of the world. And for sure, the restaurants that have received Michelin stars and Bib Gourmands in New Zealand will 100% see the upside of it, and for the investment from the government. Australia's a different story. I think South Australia, geez, they're going to reap the benefit like crazy. Everyone's going to flock because people aren't going to understand when they look at the Michelin guide that the whole of Australia doesn't have it. They're just going to see that all the restaurants are concentrated in South Australia, right? And so South Australia for a while will benefit substantially. Oh, this is a benchmark. We can get restaurants that are being awarded a Michelin star, but geez, it's only in South Australia. So where are we going to go? South Australia. And to miss out on Sydney, Melbourne, even Perth, Tasmania, Brisbane, Queensland, ACT, everywhere, to not sort of look after Australia as a whole seems a bit of a trick's being missed by the government.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to look at it. They'll be like having a great time eating their way around Adelaide and the regions. And yeah, shout out to Jake Kelly at RK, who's spent some time with you at Burnt Ends and really love what he does. And I'm sure, well, I'm not sure, I don't know, but
are you a judge?
I'm not. But yeah, look, I hope all the great restaurants in South Australia get their dues. But it'd be funny, I don't know if you're right. Like a really international tourist really just going to book a flight straight to Adelaide and be like, where's that opera house I saw on the postcards? Oh, I don't know. We must have missed it. But let's see. I think, the return on investment from the government that's paying millions of dollars, whether it's New Zealand or South Australia, is an international diner going to see that place has got a star and then like book a flight, plan a whole trip? Like you got to spend a couple of weeks down here. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see. But I do think it's going to. I don't know. It's such an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, I think I don't think it'll get people to book a flight there. But I think it can, if they're going, I'm going to go to Australia, and obviously Australia's a huge country, and they're like, where am I going to go? It could feature heavily in their decision in how they maneuver their trip. And also, you can imagine you're in Sydney, right? As a international tourist, you're in Sydney, and you're like, where are the Michelin star restaurants? I'm like, we know Australia's got Michelin stars, but there's none in Sydney. Are they all shit? like. To me, that doesn't make sense. And for the Australian government not to take a broad view on it, I think, definitely missed a trick.
Yeah, I think there'd be some very interesting conversations happen behind closed doors about that. And I reckon, South Australia definitely a bit of brinkmanship, and I think it's well played on their part. Let's see how it all plays out. It certainly has made me, I always love going to New Zealand, but it's definitely made me want to go there and check out some more places. I think anything that shines light on restaurants is great. Of course, then there's like who missed out, and the pressure of maintaining a star and all of that. But we can't cover every topic in this rambling chat today, Dave. But let's finish with something about cooking with fire and how it doesn't always go right. I've seen a story in your book about cooking in Bali. Tell us that story, and then we'll wrap it up.
So we've had 2 fires uncontrolled fires in 14 years now. And the one you're talking about is we were asked to come over and cook with Will Goldfarb at Room for Dessert in Ubud for one of his birthdays. And, tropical wood isn't hardwood, it's softwood. So the structure of the wood's differently. And so it's typically not as dense because all the water runs through the tree rather than around the outside underneath the bark. And so it burns differently because it turns into air pockets. And so the life cycle of the wood is very short and very fast. And so we're used to having a hardwood that burns very long and very hot. And so when we were building the fire, getting ready for service, obviously we've got, 10 dishes on, we've got to cook for 3.5 hours. And so we need a lot of coals and a good base heat to be able to cook on for the rest of the night. And so I load up the barbecues, and they're not specialist barbecues. So, we load it up, and there's a rack kind of thing that sits above the bottom where they're going to drop into. And so we pile it up and, we set it on fire, and I walk away quickly and I go do some stuff. Then I come back and check on it. I'm like, oh, fuck, this is getting pretty high. And there's a thatched roof, like maybe a foot above my head. And I'm watching this fire, and I'm watching the wood and the bottom wood hasn't started breaking. So that fire hasn't started dropping, and it's starting to get more intense. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And then I can see it like licking the thatch, and I'm like, oh. And I'm like, I run inside. I'm like, Will, have you got a hose somewhere? He's like, no. I'm like, have you got a fire extinguisher? And he's like, no. He's like, what do you need it for? I'm like, oh, just, we're having a few issues. I just want to get it under control. Anyway, I go back, and it's starting to burn on the thatch. And we just at this point, we're like, fuck, it's too late. And so we're getting buckets of water. We're throwing it. It's up in the roof now. All the electrics start burning out. We get these trays. We put them on top of the wood over the fire to stop it, because obviously, you crush the oxygen intake. And because the trays are like those shitty metal trays, the really fucking cheap ones, it just fucking melts. And then the knobs on his gas barbecue melt, and then all his electrics go out. And we manage, sort of burnt like a black ring on the roof. So there's no lights, there's no electricity. We burn all the trays, all the plastic hobs are fucking burnt through. And I walk in, I'm like, Will, and this is like 20 minutes before service. And I'm just like, Will, I'm so fucking sorry. Whatever damage is done, I'll fucking pay for it. I'm so apologetic. And he just turns to me and goes, do you want a Negroni? And I was like, you fucking bastard, eh? And he was just so cool about it. And we just, we got makeshift lights. We fixed the whole, we fixed what we needed to do, got some more equipment in. And we ended up having a pretty fun, good service. And what I thought was the ultimate disaster in the world, he fixed with a Negroni and a good attitude.
Wow. I mean, there's probably about 10 lessons in there, but we'll take the Negroni lesson. So it's been a few years since we chatted to Will Goldfarb on the podcast, but I'll put a link to that episode in the show notes, because I remember it as a really great chat. And that is a really special place, Room for Dessert in Bali. I would love to get back there one day. Dave, what a good chat. We've covered tax and pork and mandarin and all the important stuff. Really appreciate your time and love to catch up about what you're doing in Singapore. Look forward to getting over there and maybe having one of those fancy burnt flour snacks to kick off a great meal.
Well, let me know when you're up here next. It'd be great to have you in.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen. I'm Dani Valent. We bring you untold stories from the food world. Real, raw, unafraid, hopeful. We're driven by a belief that food provides endless opportunities for learning, connecting, and creating the world we want to live in. Delicious, open-hearted, meaningful. If you know a story that needs telling, get in touch. Write to dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thank you for listening.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.